All right. Hey guys, welcome to another series of Moms in the Middle. I never know what to call this because some of us have podcasts, some of us don't, but episode, if you will, of Moms in the Middle. Today it's supposed to be me, Michelle, and Katie May. Katie, we don't know where you're at, girl. So
come on.
So we're going to start, and then if she can hop in, she'll show up whenever she can. Today, we wanted to kind of chat about toxic thoughts and taking control of them. What do they look like all the things. And for me, this is a topic I really want to talk about because I'm reading a book, Get Out of Your Head. I don't know if you've heard of it, Michelle.
I did a book club on that with my people. Yeah.
Okay. It is rocking my world right now. And I wish I would have found it sooner, which of course, I don't know when she came out with it, but I'm the type of person that gets all in my head about things. And so I was really excited. First, I guess let's back up and introduce ourselves. I like to go in, guys. I got Carline coming up. I'm ready.
Seriously.
So I'm Ashley. And I am the host of the So She Grows podcast. I am what I like to call myself your hype mom bestie, going alongside other mamas on the journey to kicking these negative thoughts, these negative self-talk. And then I really love to help women get a spicy marriage and then get back to feeling like themselves and just walk alongside other people that are doing the same thing that I'm doing right now. And then Michelle, host of the Set Free Sisterhood podcast. Michelle, do you want to share a little bit about what you do real quick?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I help women to ditch the wine witch because she has a lot of chatter going on, a lot, and really get control back so that they can thrive alcohol free. And it's really just to walk out the life that God's called you to live in. But first we have to remove it. Mm-hmm. We have to renew our minds, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today, so that we can rebuild and create that life of fulfillment. So I love these conversations.
Yeah. Okay. So let me see, the first question that I had for us was, how do you think this toxic thought song, which is kind of what I call it, because it's usually these thoughts, and maybe we need to simplify what toxic thoughts are, because it's like, I'm not good enough. Michelle, you can chime in with what you think is, a common toxic thought, but the first one that comes to mind is, I'm not good enough. Some form of like comparisonitis between you and another person or another mom, comparing your motherhood to theirs. I suck at this. I can't do this. Michelle, what do you feel like are some of the ones that are on replay in your head?
Yeah. Anything that says I've never been good at blank, or I don't know how to do blank. Mm-hmm. Anything that creates a judgment and, like you said, a comparison that is not moving you forward, is keeping you stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, I am like, things are so bad because XYZ. And then you list all the 500 bajillion things that you can list that are negative instead of focusing on the good, which we just discovered is something that Michelle is better at doing than I am better at doing, because I will sit there and list all the 500 things that are bad and forget about all the good things. But so how does that play out when we have these toxic thought songs on replay in our head? Like, how does it show up in our lives? How does it show up in our marriage? Like, what does it feel like internally? What does it do to our marriages? What does it do to ourselves? Michelle, how does it show up for you when you have when you're in a toxic thought spiral?
Mm-hmm. What a loaded question too, right? Because it affects every area of our life. I mean, I think that's the thing, is it really does. Because, even Katie May, who's not here, we're going to get her. She says a lot. Your thoughts create your reality. That's like her simplified version. And that's so true, because they do, because that's what creates this pattern. So I do want to mention, even before we talk about how it affects us, is just kind of how it happens. I think a lot of us, depending on our culture even, and how we were raised, what our household looked like what kind of, maybe income level, what kind of education with our family and our parents, a lot of this starts from, if you grew up in a culture of more of a negative mindset or negative speaking language, then you're going to have a harder time as an adult versus somebody who does grow up in a home that maybe had that super positive, the glass is 3/4 full kind of mom or dad, and you just kind of like, oh yeah, we just look at the positive first. So you already have that kind of as your scale. So then you have to choose, okay, like, how do I learn how to do this thing? But before that, you got to realize that it really is something you can pick up on really quickly if we start paying attention. Because what I noticed in my life was I was just always feeling stressed out, frustrated. You know, I didn't want to go to work because I didn't like my job, or I didn't want to try new things. Because so then for some reason you're like, well, why am I showing up that way? Something's back there, like you said, a tape or a record or a loop. It's something that's been going on for a long time. So really the simple answer is, if we have negative or toxic thinking that is playing on repeat, and all we have to do is look at the actions and our results that we're getting in our life to go, oh, well, there must be something back there playing, because I'm not getting what I want out of life.
Yeah. And see, and I think that's different too, because I think some of us, like myself, man, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, I struggle. I like to call myself realistic, is what I say. Like, my husband is like Michelle, where he can see the silver lining, and he's like, you know, okay, this happened, but you know, we're gonna do da. Right. So like, I get stuck on the this happened part. And so even when I see the way that things are unfold, and it's a good point that you brought up about like childhood, because I felt like I was raised up and brought up in an environment where the world wasn't my oyster. Like, it was already like the foot of the world was already pressing down on me, and I had to figure out how to like push forward. So I already felt like the struggle before there even was a struggle, right? And so like, you know, everything was everybody or something against, you know, them, and whether it was financially or hardships or whatever. And so that's kind of how I grew up, with like that fear mindset about money, like you're gonna lose it, you know, all this stuff. Like, and so now, even though I see that, or I've seen it playing out in my life, like I don't like it. I don't like how it makes me feel. I don't like how it makes me show up. I don't like that I am constantly pointing out the negative, instead of, because I see other people who come at things and they're like, oh, you know, like, you know, this really sucked, but this and that, right? And they can move forward, whereas I get stuck. And so I think that's really hard for some of us to do, the like moving forward, even when we see the impact in our life that it makes. And what I just learned, and what, you know, I picked up in this book, and I mean, it's the simplest thing ever, but was that I have a choice. Like, I always felt like this was a part of me. It was stuck with me. I was trying to fight against it. I was trying to like, but it never.
It's happening to you.
Right. And so I never thought that, like, once I was like, okay, but you can choose, like, you have a choice, and you have to stop it right there and say, like, you know, like, this sucks, but I choose. And then you like, so otherwise, my point being was like, I've been stuck in this place for like, you know, over 30 years of like, man, why can't I be like, I hate this, but I can't, like, it was like this wall of like, I can't break free. And yeah, like you said, it affects everything. And it sucks when you just get in these spirals of like, and if you don't have somebody to tell you otherwise, like, I can't even imagine, like, my husband's constantly like, here's the truth, like, you know,
right.
But if you don't have that, like, gosh.
Well, and I think too, we have to be careful to not go the opposite, to where, you know, we can ooze too much fake positivity too. My gauge for myself has been like, okay, where I used to stay in the pit of yuck and woe is me and this sucks,
right,
for a week or longer. Now it might be a few hours, it might be a day, you know. That also depends on my cycle and what's going on with that, because we know that matters with our hormones when we talk about that.
I'm learning about that now. Katie, what's up? Katie
She's
is
here
in the house.
What's up, ladies?
All right, guys.
But I'm in.
Just talking about how life is hard, we suck, and no, toxic thoughts.
Yes.
Talking about getting stuck in that mindset, not being able to break free from that cycle when you get in it of like, okay, the mom guilt and the I'm not good enough, I can't, this always happens to me. Just kind of having that conversation right now. And Michelle was talking about the impacts of your upbringing and also just mindset and balance of like, being aware of your thoughts and not going too far of like fake it till you make it positivity, but also not getting stuck in the dumps.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome to the chat, Katie.
Welcome. Ashley, I do have a question for you though, too, because I have met other people like this that you say,
like me.
Like you, girl, you special. That's more of, you say you're more of a realistic point of view or realist or whatever.
Right.
And sometimes they have told me that maybe I'm missing something because I'm always looking and trying to navigate like the positive and the guide versus like, they're like, no, but the reality is this could happen, or, that could even tend towards the worst case scenario. So how do you feel like you use that as to your advantage, and how have you been able to kind of like rein it in when it goes too far? Because that's hard for me because I don't struggle with that,
Good question. To just preface this, I'm a recovering pessimist, so I just want
I love this. Okay, so this is a good combo because Michelle, I feel like, is on the other, she just barely on the other side of the fence, right? Like, I feel like Michelle is what we want to aim to be probably. And then I am over here of like, just now being able to get my head above water after reading this book. And then Katie's like steps above me. So like, I like,
well, I'm not a pessimist. I will say I'm in a recovery because like, I think my natural tendency will still like, but the work that I have been able to do in this very topic, like even with Michelle, with my therapy, with my coaching, like it's transformative for sure. So you absolutely can change the way your mind works and pay attention to those thoughts, but I'll let you answer the question because it was asked of you. So
so I feel like when you are a pessimist, this like realist, I feel like the realist thing is kind of an excuse. Like it's kind of a like trying to make people see, or it's like a fraud. I don't know any other way to put it. And also, if it isn't some sort of front for you trying to be negative, like it's because we are trying to manage this negative thought habit that we have, or this like more, looking at the glass half empty perspective, in what we want to call a realist way, because we don't want to be labeled negative. We're like trying to move away from that, is what, for me anyways. And because I don't know if other people that are more pessimistic are like this, but like, I feel like I have expectations for myself and always on other things. And it helps me to manage that to where I am, quote unquote, being real with the situation of, I'm not, overestimating what something will be like, but I'm not also preparing myself for the worst. But I feel like in this middle, what I will call like realisticness, helps me kind of be prepared for both without, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you think
anyways,
do you think you sometimes use it as an excuse though? Like, you think that's the thing? It's like, okay, well, if I prepare myself and I look at that, is that going to protect me when the bad thing happens?
Right. I think it's out of fear and out of safety, like trying to protect yourself. Yeah. At least for me. I don't know if anybody else who's listening can relate to that, or if they have that same, I don't know. Or I'm just weird.
I think it's good though. I mean, like we do need to be aware,
right,
like of like negative things that could possibly, like, even when we're looking at putting in like habits, right? This is something I walk my clients through, is because if we're going to just start something new, it's like, okay, that sounds great. When are you going to do it? Right. And it's like this time, okay, what obstacles are going to come up for you in this time. Like getting real with those, like that's all good, right? But it's when it takes over and it's like the focus, and then you operate from that place of fear that or the what if, right? When it starts to hold you back, that's the problem.
Yeah, like when these thoughts get turned into things that you're actually believing, which is like I can't do this, or this isn't, or this doesn't happen to people like me, or those kinds of things. And then when those songs get played on repeat, it's like scientifically proven that you start to believe it, and then that becomes your truth because your actions portray somebody that is thinking that way, and then it just builds on this cycle of like, well, there's your proof, right? Because you believed it, and then you act this way, and then you get this outcome, and then that's your visual proof of like, oh man, that and then so I'm learning to break the cycle.
Yeah.
We'll
Well, and you made a good point. It's because these, like we talked about, like the thoughts are on repeat and they're causing the result in your life. And here's what happens when you are telling your brain something, or it's telling you, or however you want to look at it, the enemy, inner critic, whatever, on repeat, then like you said, it will find your data. It's going to find it, because if you're looking for it, it's just like anything you want to know. We could all ask the same question, and wherever we go to dig, we're going to find the answer that our brain wants to find. And so it's the same thing of, even if you take it, I'm not good enough. Well, then your brain's going to tell you all the reasons that you're not, because it's going to start thinking about, oh yeah, remember that time you tried this and you failed at that, or you remember you tried, and then you just decide, well, I'm not good enough anyway, so why should I even try again? But the thing is like, one of my biggest questions is like, what can I learn from that? Like, what can I learn from that experience, and get real with myself and say, okay, wow, what did I really kind of stink at, so that I can get better, and know that, it goes back to the human part. And Katie and I talked about that. It's like, we're human, that it's okay to like feel all the feels and mess up and still go do something great.
No, I'm a coach, and so I have to be perfect.
Right.
These are like the legit ego bullshit thoughts that creep into my head all the time. Like, who am I to have this, feel this still? I've done all this work. Why am I, you know what I mean? And it's like, we have to just be like, for me, I just to be so painstakingly aware of it. Right. And then like Michelle says, like, build a case. Like, what are the truths with that? Like, okay, we can focus in and build all the truths. And I say collect data, right? Like, okay, here's a belief. If you don't judge yourself for it, right? Like, okay, I have this belief. What does this mean? What is it saying? And is it true? And you can build a case for it, like to prove it. But you can also, if you're willing and you're going to be open to it, to questioning it, is what else is true? How could you build a case against it? Right.
So is that what you do every time you're catching yourself in one of these thought cycles?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, okay, this is what I'm believing in this moment. Right. And so then it's like, okay, but what is true in this moment? Not just like, I do this with my clients, because when you're communicating with your spouse, right, you can decide like, okay, he was a really big jerk and he hurt my feelings, and I believe he's a really big jerk. That's what I believe right now. Right. Or, right, like, is it possible that he actually does really love you and he's hurt and he has another perspective on this scenario? Or did he just really not care about you and he wanted to hurt you?
So I wonder what's the difference. I wonder what's the difference between those who can have that in mind, right? Like, have their best interest in mind, because that happens with me and my spouse too. And I think that that's because I have this like fear-based mindset, this negative mindset of like, when something happens, then I jump to like, oh, like, he's a jerk, he doesn't listen to me, versus like, oh, like he legitimately is on the same team as me, he loves me and he wants the best for me, and we just like miscommunicated. Like, but I go into this huge thing of like, like, this isn't going to work out. Like, are we really meant for each other? Like, it just happens and happens. So I wonder what's the difference. Like, and that doesn't even occur to me, right? Like until him and I go through the whole process of like working through this, and he's like reminding me that we're on the same team and that like legitimately there was nothing behind his action but like human nature, right? Like, so then I'm like, oh yeah, like he does love me. It's such a dumb like thing, but in my mind, in that second, I cannot even think about his best interest at the, like, I can't even see them being at the same time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I wonder how people do that.
Totally feel that way. I used to do the exact same thing. So that's what I said. Like I totally understand that because that was exactly what I used to do. And then I determined that he was selfish. We were never going to work. I probably never should have married him. We're like seriously doomed. Like there's really no point. What is even the point in continuing on in this marriage? Let's just be real. But that's exactly what I used to do. And the thing is like what for me personally, Ashley, what like started to like tip that scale is when I start to think those things is you take ownership for your thoughts and feelings and you make an invitation to check in with yourself on them. Like, don't just take them as truth.
Right. Yeah.
Question them. Like that's my, and it's not perfect. It's not a perfect system. Right. I still go pretty dark sometimes, but not judging yourself for it and being like, well, I wonder why I'm thinking this, right? Like make it an open invitation to check in with your thoughts and question your feelings. Cause the truth is there might be truth to it. Like, okay, maybe he was really rude. That may be true. Right. But that's the thing. If you don't question like what you want from him in that place, where these thoughts came from, what's actually true, what's actually a lie. If you don't, if you're so certain about your thoughts and your feelings all the time, you're just operating from that standpoint. So for me, it's about questioning them and being able to question them.
Well, and part of it too, I heard you say the truth. Like it's like you responded a certain way, but yet you said, "Oh yeah, I know we love each other and we're on the same team." So I think that is part of it's just being human and whatever's happening with the ego in the moment, we're gonna like think that, but then you get to go back. That's the cool thing is that we do get to go back and we go, wait a minute, or take time to do this. You know, what is the truth? And let's just talk about it. How well are you taking care of yourself? You know, where are you right now? And, you know, are you tired? Are you run down? Have y'all really had a chance to connect? Or just in life in general? It doesn't have to always turn into the husband and wife scenario, but just to realize like what's going on in your life right now. Are you tired? Are you struggling? Because then that's like a breeding ground for all the ugly negativity because it just feeds there.
Right.
So a lot of to tack on to the whole like questioning, I also, especially if this is a thought that has been running on replay for years, I always ask my clients to let's find the source of the story. Like we got to go find where the heck this came from because it is a belief at this point. Because, and that's the whole thing too. I'm like, I'm not going to fight you for your beliefs. Like you get to choose whether you want to keep them or not. So you get to decide, is it serving you or not? So, but I'm going to help you go find it. So then you can decide like, oh yeah, I do want to keep this, or no, that doesn't make sense. And then we go on a big time journey of like finding out the real truth. And like we said with our brain, and we start looking for the source of the new story. Right. So I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those are really good points. I'm really going to dive into that because for me, even if we are coming off like a date night or, you know, something really good, and even if I'm well rested in a good season, I think that for me, because of, you know, and maybe other women can relate, past relationships, trauma growing up or whatever, you're constantly in that fight or flight mode to where when something happens, you're looking for an exit strategy. You're like trying to protect yourself. And even if it doesn't make any sense, right? Like in this situation with my husband, there's no need. Can y'all hear that?
A little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. Not bad.
Okay. Fun stuff about building, right? So anyway, so when you have those things, even when things are good, that is, like you said, now I'm want to dive into that to where it's not just like this toxic thought anymore. Now it's a belief. And that is like my immediate action whenever something happens. So yeah, that's interesting. And I don't know. I think when you have trauma or past issues in relationships, that can be a trigger too, that you also have to train yourself to catch and then question, like Katie was saying. But yeah, how do you guys feed when since we're talking about lies and truths, the enemy will take over and tell you lies in the darkness for sure. So how do you guys feed yourself truths? How do you remind yourself of truths when you're in those places? Whether it's a dark place, a toxic thought spiral, or whatever. How do you feed yourself the truth? Realistically.
Well, for me, it has been practice, like anything we talk about here, whether we're talking about recognizing the thoughts, taking the time, I call it thought downloading, looking at them, all this stuff, all this is practice.
So do you like stop mid thought though? Like
not now, no.
Okay.
No, but I'm just saying in general, like whatever advice or say the things that I found that works for me, I just want the listeners to realize like this doesn't magically happen. I've been working on this for years. Like this is like, and still have certain things that come up and I'm like, oh my gosh, why is that still there? But the truth part, I mean, it really, for me, has been my intentional relationship with the Lord and doing quiet time and reading over scripture, doing the SOAP method where I can break down the scripture so I can understand it. And what has organically happened is all those little nuggets of truth get implanted into my heart so that I have that sort of in my toolbox. And so then what I did from that even, and I'd be happy to give it to anyone who wants it, is I created like a 31-day like truth affirmation like worksheet for myself that is an affirmation for every day, but it comes straight from scripture. It's not something woo-woo that I made up. It's not like I feel beautiful today. It is like I literally took a verse, I broke down what it said, and I turned it into a truth statement. And I read over those. So
that's good.
Yeah,
that is good. Katie, how do you feed yourself the truth when you're in there?
I have to just say this because she talked about scripture. You guys, I get the like verse of the day on my Bible app, right? Did you guys see the verse of the day today?
Oh my gosh, what is it? I haven't looked at it yet.
It's Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy,
my gosh.
think about such things. I'm sorry, that's freaking crazy. This is our topic, and
that is crazy.
Like, so to Michelle's
it literally
point,
is.
It
Just
is.
so people know.
It is. I read it this morning and then I was thinking about it. I was sitting here and she said scripture and I'm like, and this is the verse of the day. Like it didn't even like occur to me until she said that. But to Michelle's point, it is intentional practice on like if you look, you want to take even like the scientific side of this, that neuroscience theorizes that we are hardwired to look for negativity as self-protection. Right. So the awesome part about this is neuroscience also shows that our brains have neuroplasticity is what they call it. So we can change it. Yay! But just like building a six-pack at the gym, it takes consistency and it takes practice. And so our brains don't think in don'ts. So we can't say don't think positive or don't think negative or don't think that or, so my biggest tool is what am I going to think instead, right? And so driving an intentional practice, setting my mind, my gratitude practice in the morning is life-changing. Like specifically seeking out the things in my life that I am grateful for, I am happy for, like that is such a good way to set my mind right for the day. So that's one practice. And then, and yes, scripture and time with God, like that's my baseline. Like, am I right? Am I wrong? Like where my thoughts are right now. Right.
Yeah. And if you're going to the world for the truths, that's the wrong place to be looking, because you're going to find exactly what you're looking for. Just like what Michelle was saying, and the world is going to tell you you're not good enough. You're not you're not hustling hard enough. You need a mom better, you need to do this and that.
Having outside perspective, I don't think I'm ever going to be without a coach. Like, I just don't think, I don't
Yeah.
see that in my life. Like, I am like just the other day I had and having good friends, for those of you who like aren't financially committed to a coach, if you have good friends who know you, who you trust, like who can call you out on your stuff, like to be able to call, like that's huge too. Because just the other day I had a call and it triggered me into like full body anxiety, and it's been years since that's happened, and I couldn't figure it out. I went through all my practices. I prayed about it. I wrote about it, but I was like, there's something here, like that triggered something really deep, and I'm blind to it. Like when we're in it, no matter how much work you do, we still always have, this is where the ego can really kick our ass. Like if we are just able to be like, okay, I'm human, I'm blind to something here, I need help. And thankfully I have some really good friends who are therapists and like connections. And I was like, hey, I gotta talk, like, let's help me out here. Right. Yeah. So I was able to get on the phone with her, and it was insane. Like our brain does such crazy, and the devil, like he's a bastard, does such crazy stuff in our minds. Right. Like that is, it's mind blowing. It's like, oh my gosh, I have this belief, right? That I didn't even see. And the second this person brought this scenario up, it matched so closely to challenge and trigger my belief, right? That I just flipped, and I didn't even know it. It was not as simple as like the thought was right there in my head. It was a thought I couldn't see. So outside perspective is a huge part of that practice as well for me.
Yeah. So when you were in that moment where you were triggered and you felt like that full blown, like you felt it, what did you do? Like, what were your steps? Or was it like days later? Or
I can't tolerate days anymore. I'm out of, I'm like, I'm gonna dig that shit out, bring it to light. And like, we need to just put this on the table. I can't live days like that.
So you immediately hopped on the phone then? Like you immediately sought out somebody to hear you out on this?
Because I will say, like, first of all, like people aren't at the ready for me anytime I want. If you're in a situation like I was, like I have my grounding practice. So I get to my safe spot in my head, right? I relax, I do breathing. So breath work is really important too. And then journal, right? Because sometimes you can come to your own conclusion by writing out the circumstances that you were right before you were triggered. And sometimes I can come to my own conclusion just by journaling. It's actually a psychological activity. But when those things, and that was able to stabilize like me and my anxiety in the sense that I could go about and actually still function until I could get on the phone with the therapist I was and she's a coach too that I was going to talk to. So those are just good tools so that it's not like when that real bad shit happens, that I can still function, but I'm not about to just be like, nah, I'll see how this goes for a couple days. I'm like, that was real. Something is there. And I think it starts with that, like questioning it and then being willing to dive in.
Yeah.
Because it's there. That's why you had that response. That's why you had that reaction. Right.
Yeah. I think what I'm hearing through all those like examples is it's so counterintuitive for us to want to keep going, to push forward and busy ourselves, to ignore things and to like keep going, which is my tendency is I like to go, versus to be able to stop and slow down and either breathe, like take a freaking breath. Like some of us like we can't even do that. We're so in it. We're just like, go. And to stop and get still. And then also not feed into the excuse that like, I don't have time to get in the word. Like I don't have time, but like, yet we're giving time to the enemy to be able to plant these lies, to be able to pour into this like already negative space that we're in. So like you said, I think it's one of those things where you have to make the choice, acknowledge like when it's happening and then slow the heck down. And then, like, what is my next step from here? And maybe having a plan of like, okay, I need to journal that out. This is what I do when I feel these things. I journal that out. I'm going to reach out to this person or like, whatever it is for yourself. But I feel like the main point or what I'm seeing is like, we just have to slow down and like be able to process what we're thinking, what is even crossing our mind in that moment.
Well, I will say for sure, step one is always awareness in my book.
Yeah.
You know, like you've got to be
Mhm.
aware that this is even happening, that
Mhm.
that you're aware, like I'm busy and I'm go, 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 and I'm reaction mode. And then you do have to just kind of question it. And the point you brought up about time, I ask, you know, ladies in my community like that, I want to know, how much time do you spend thinking about drinking?
Mm.
Same thing. How much time do you spend thinking about blank, whatever your this negative spiral is? Because then you realize, like, wow, the energy,
So
the
good.
brain energy that
Yeah.
you are taking, like, oh my gosh, I think about that every single day, and could be hours on the day. Like when you start to just be aware and you realize how much clutter, just think about all the creativity that you have been given because God made you, that you're stifling because you're so busy spinning out on this thing. So that's definitely where I would start. It's just realizing, shoot, man, how much time am I spending, and how's this? How am I showing up because of this? And then
Love that.
take the next step.
Yeah. I think the other thing to make notice of, or at least to mention on here, is that like you are not broken because you think this way or because you have this struggle. Like I think that was probably the first hurdle that I had to get over, was I could acknowledge, you know, that this was not right, or like I didn't like what was going on. I didn't like, my first reaction was always the worst, or to like, you know, my husband was I always use that because that's an easy example for me. But like that's the most triggering situations for me, is that like, you know, he'll miss a call, or like he'll be somewhere longer than he's supposed to be, and then I go into this like, well, you know, oh my gosh, he must have been like picked up by some chick and then they went to their house and then like I mean my brain goes there, okay, like, and and like that's probably, like Michelle said, deeply rooted because of some other stuff, right? So like, but for me, even if it was something like about life, like, oh, like, you know, I could never do that, or like that, I guess that just isn't for me because I'm not good enough, or like that, you know, whatever. It was always like shame and guilt, and that I even thought that way, like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I just look on the positive side? And I did that, like, and still do that, honestly, like, to where I feel like it needs to be said that like there isn't anything wrong with you for thinking that way. Like there isn't anything broken about you. Like, can we like acknowledge it and like do better? Sure, if you want to, right? Like if we want to not have those thoughts and stuff, but like I just feel like we get stuck first in having the thought before we can even take action, right? Just having the thought and then feeling shame, feeling guilt, and feeling like there's something wrong with us.
And that's why, another reason why we have got to have community, and we have to have other women in our life that are speaking the truth and they're telling the truth, not these fake friends that are like, yeah, girl, or, you know, when you know, the people that will call you out and go, wait a minute, no, or I think the same way, let's work on this together. Like,
Yes.
the more we choose to just keep it in and be quiet about it, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah, like if y'all could just see the inner workings of what this group looks like on text, gets real. So
it is real, yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of the times women are going to be praying for that. Like I think for me, a long time of like, where are those people? Who are those people? Like, you know, and then seeing a group of women like us and then being like, well, that's easy for you to say because you have that, but what about me? Like, I would say like, pray about that. And like, I think it will come. It may take years, but you gotta seek it out, whether it's like reaching out to somebody. Like I reached out to Ryan, barely even knew her, and was like, hey, let's, you know, what do you think about this idea that I have? And then she was like, oh, I know this person. And like, I know this person. And people started pulling people in, and y'all, we have never met in person before. And a lot of us didn't even have direct connections to each other. And then every day we talk and we're like, okay, this was meant to be. Like, this was crazy how we got connected, and it was meant to be. And y'all, like, this is like, for me, like years and years, like decades of praying for a group like this, you know? So anyways, just had to put that out there. Cause when I listen to somebody and they're like, have a community and find a community, I'm like, oh, easy for you to say. But
your point, you put yourself out there. You have to also take those steps of maybe your community is going to come to you in a way that you didn't expect. And you have to be open to that too. Right? Like, maybe, and like you
Like
did,
it's-
you put it out there, and this was just started as like a great idea for you, right? And then like it evolved into such a awesome connection with women.
Mhm.
So I think a big part of that is like, are you also being the friend you want to have too for other people listening? Like, I know that that was true too for a lot of my relationships, was like I was constantly helping,
Mhm.
in the sense of like helping them like work through their stuff. So
Mhm.
I attracted a lot of people who would just take from me, right?
Mhm.
And I didn't have good boundaries, and then I would end up resenting. Anyways, we could go on, but that's a whole nother, that's a whole
Yeah.
other thing. The thing is like, are you being the friend that you want to have too, right? Like, are you showing up, or are you just hoping someone's going to come along and just be that for you?
Well, and I have 2 points on that. One is, what's the source of the story? What are you telling yourself about friends, right? This topic of conversation, you know, I'll never find friends. I've never really had good friends. The time I did have friends, they hurt me or betrayed me, because you're blocked if that's what's going on. And the second thing
Love that.
is that we have to become, like you said, Katie, too, like, I wouldn't be in this group if it wasn't for the work I just did for the last 3 years. Like,
Right.
I got to a place where I attracted women, like-minded women, that we were on this journey of growth and mindset, and decided to like step into who we are just to get here. So,
Right.
you know, that's how that works too.
Yeah, showing up your messiest, which is what I like about, you know, our moms in the middle, is that we're showing up like in the middle of the mess, like, and y'all, like Katie said in our text messages, y'all see like how we are really just, it is, life for everybody is just messy. And when you're able to put that out there and then be like, hey, like, meet me in my mess, I'll meet you in your mess, no judgment, like, I'm going to put this out there, and then whoever receives it, like, those are your people. But as we are ending this episode, like I said, I got to do Carline. I mean, you all know that Carline does not play. So, it doesn't. So I wanted to leave you all with, what is one truth, if you could leave with, the people who are watching or listening, what is one truth that you would want these women or mamas to know? I wish I would have thought about that earlier to give you guys a heads up, but
I mean, for me, it's even what you said a while ago, talking about the book, is that we have, we're capable, and that we have been given a spirit to be overcomers, and that we have a choice. We are only in bondage if we choose to put our hands behind our back and stay there. Like, it is empowering to finally know that no matter what, I get to choose. I think that's it.
Can I just like ditto that?
No.
Well, mine would be much along the same lines, is life is not happening to you, right? And life is happening for you, and you have the choice of actually making that like a thing. Like, it doesn't, if you wake up every day dissatisfied about your life, you are the only person who can change that. And here's the glorious thing, is like, you actually can. And everything we just talked about here, it can start with something as simple as a gratitude practice, a journal practice. It starts with becoming aware of the thoughts and the stories you're already believing and telling yourself. Like, it can just start, it seems too simple. So don't let that be, you know, the downfall here. It's like, oh, it's too simple. No, like, it actually can just be that simple if you just start it. Just start with that next step.
That's good. And also triggering. When you said life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, that was legitimately triggering for me. I think still being in that space of like working through, it's like, well, no, like, you know, that was my initial, you know, like, that's just so positive. But what I read in one of, which I'm doing one of the SOAP Bible studies by Horatio Printing as well. And then one of the passages that I just recently read was something about, like, what are you doing with this resurrected life? Like, and when I looked at it like that, it's like, wow, like, wait a minute, like, not just this life, but like let's remind you that it is a resurrected life. Like this is the life that you were gifted that
Mhm.
like, you know, like can't be wasted. And for whatever reason, like maybe that's no big deal to other people listening, but for whatever reason that hit me to where it's like, wow, like this is an opportunity, a chance, a gift, a second chance, like to live life fully and to start embracing this gift that God gave me to live out fully every day, to like not worry about tomorrow, not, you know, like not carry the weight that isn't mine to carry, you know, all these things to where I was like, wow, like I get so caught up in this, like it's me against the world mentality, but, or the world against me, but like what a gift that he has given, you know, do you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
anyways,
And you can
Oh,
only
for
do
sure.
that if you slow down
right.
Yep.
and take the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the book that I mentioned earlier that we referred to is this book, Get Out of Your Head by Jenny Allen, and it's really good. So if you're looking for a resource to stop these toxic thoughts, see how somebody else who is in your shoes is battling this, like legitimately was, you know, a Christian influencer, if you want to call her that, and you know, was legitimately struggling with these thoughts, but also still supposed to be showing up for the kingdom of God on social media and all this stuff, and how like she combats that, is really interesting and very tangible, and really helpful for me. So that is why, one of the reasons why I brought up one of those topics, and obviously it was meant to be because, you know,
Mhm.
scripture of the
Yeah.
day says so. So
I actually created a worksheet for this.
okay.
It's called the gut check worksheet.
I like
But I
that.
have it, and it's to identify like what belief, like it walks you through it, has you
Mhm.
ask your questions.
Mhm.
So for those of you who are like journaling, like what? And I actually did that because the women in my group were like, can you like give us specific questions? And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
just ask yourself this, and then
Yep.
determine, right?
Okay. So where
So
can
I
they
actually
find
made a
that?
worksheet. I'll put it in the post
Okay.
here, and then so people can access
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So wherever we share this video or this episode, y'all will have the link. We'll put it down either on our podcast or in the description. So you guys can find that resource. And that is it, guys. I hope that was helpful for you guys.
Fine.
What?
Get that car line.
I know. Y'all, it does not play. Like you get there a second late and you are like blocks down the road.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I got 3. I go like boom, boom, boom. I got 3 kids at 3 different places. So welcome. You just wait, Katie. You just wait. No.
I don't even
Actually,
try. I walk up. I park in the neighborhood near the school and walk up because that car line is disastrous. But I only have one, so I can do that.
mhm,
Well, in school, I have
right.
two. So-
Right.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for
All right.
listening. And we will catch you guys on the next episode. Bye, guys.